So I was comparing my life to things. I came across an ant. I was curious, like, where's this ant going? What is this ant doing? How does this ant exist? And where are the rest of the ants? Somebody told me where there's one ant, there's thousands of ants. I watched this ant and I watched it pick up something, and it was rather large. And most of us may know from learning in school that ant can carry, X amount of times their body. And so I saw this ant gather this crumb and walk right past me and disappear. I just got to thinking, like, who is this ant? This ant must be a leader. This ant must be somebody that all the rest of the ants trust to go out and find food or whatever it was doing. This ant must be curious. This ant must be brave because he's by himself. This ant must be somewhat ambitious to think that he or she could wander in a world and find something for itself or for others. And overall, this ant must be someone or something that is passionate. I think, why was I thinking that it was passionate? So I feel like it was passionate in its adventure. It was passionate in its journey to find what it was looking for or stumble across it and take it back. And so as I was thinking about my life and where I've come from, I thought of this ant. And while I'm not many of those things that I thought about, it was curious. It was somewhat ambitious and maybe not the smartest to walk in front of me where I could have stepped on it, right? So an ant in a world full of feet is what I would call this, right? And like could be stepped on, could be washed away, but it's out and it's doing its thing. It's living its life. It's being, in my mind, a leader. So back off the ant into me a little bit. So I grew up in Irmo, South Carolina, small town at the time, much larger now. Son of immigrant parents. So while the town was small, it felt even smaller to me. I was a young, ambitious kid with not a lot of friends, not a passion or place to go, and didn't really fit in. I wasn't the smartest. I didn't play I played basketball. I didn't play it well. And so I wasn't the best looking. I wasn't the most outspoken. It was none of these things that would fit me into group A, B, C, or D. I did my own thing. I interacted with folks all around, and one of the things was that I was curious. I was always curious, to my own detriment sometimes, but curious about the world, about the way people live, about what people do, how they think, how they feel, how they believe, what they believe in. I went to church with my friends. My parents are of Sikh religion, so they worship differently, but they allowed my curiosity and they allowed me to do what I wanted to do and find my own way, sort of like that ant. And so as I grew up, I graduated from Dutch Fork High School, and I went to a small university called Lander University. And it was here where I kind of found my path, found my way. It was a very small school at the time in Greenwood, South Carolina. And you may think, like, why did you go there? Again, not very good at basketball, but they liked me enough to let me go there and test out some skills. I didn't make it very far. And so after a year of trying, I was like, this is not for me. So I focused more on the environment that I was around. And this is what I tend to do in life. And I want to believe in, and I want you all to understand that your environment shapes you. People say that all the time. And like I said, I didn't really have that one group of folks that I was always with. So I was kind of shaped in an odd way, sort of like I am right now, right? It was just different, and I enjoyed being different, and I enjoyed learning different things. And so at Lander University, small school in Greenwood, I got to experience lots of different people, but more on a personal level, interacting one-on-one. It's a small school, you know everybody. Classrooms half this size in here. You would be in class with 10, 15 other people, maybe 20 people. Coming from a large school in Irmo, my class size was less in college than it was in high school. And so I really got to interact with people. I got to know people. I got to understand their background. And that in itself kind of changed how I felt about the world. Understanding other people's experiences then shaped kind of my own experience in an odd way. I didn't have some of those experiences. While my parents, worked very, very hard, we weren't rich. We didn't have those luxuries that some of the people that I interacted with did. And I always wondered, like, how did they become rich? Or, how did they go to a different school? Or how did they experience this turmoil in their life? And so it was my senior year at Lander. I had a younger sister. She was at College of Charleston. She was the smart one. She studying marine biology. She was ahead of her class. She was going to be a marine biologist and graduate in like 3 years. Me, I'm on like year 4.5 at Lander as a senior, and I'm like, not sure what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. They give you these quizzes, and they're like, "Oh, you can be a doctor. Or you can, do this, that, and the other." The quiz didn't really tell me anything. You're like, no one knows who you are, man. Figure it out. But anyways, my sister being the leader of the pack, even though she was the younger one, she was very intelligent, and like I do for most people, learned lots from her. And really, unfortunately, she passed away going back to school on riding back to school coming from home. She visited my mom and dad in Columbia, was traveling back to College of Charleston, and had a bad accident. And so she was 19, and was 21 at the time. And so that really changed my trajectory in life. It really made me step back and think, like, I learned so much from so many people, and I always wondered what was going on in their heads and what they were doing and how they were interacting. And then I was like, for what? Why? What am I going to do with all this information that I've gathered from hundreds and thousands of people through the course of the 21 years I've been alive? What am I going to do with that information? And who cares? Does it matter? Do I help anybody? I'm over here and thinking, like, well, somebody who is so ambitious, so smart, ahead of the class, and tomorrow gone. What would she have done? How would she have changed the world? How would she have impacted somebody in a good way? How would she have helped somebody who was struggling or hurting? And she's very passionate about all of those things. So I stepped back and I really reevaluated my curiosity. And in that moment, maybe not right in that particular moment, but in that moment, something kind of clicked. And I still continue to love and engage with people every day and talk to people. But I try to do something different with the knowledge that I take in from them. I try to apply it. I try to look for how that piece of knowledge can help somebody moving forward, how that piece of knowledge can change something, can influence an outcome to benefit. And I really will tell you this, as I was, trying to figure out my way, I honestly just did a few things. I would say I was courageous, or some people would say it was stupid, on choosing a path of being in a world of government and uncertainty and turmoil. And then also some people would say that, that's a good place to be for what you're saying right now. It's a good place to have a path of influence or of helping people. And so after my sister passed, I knew I wanted to go into some kind of government affairs role where I can change something and have some kind of influence and impact somebody for the better. And so as I ventured down my journey, I got into state government, worked at a state agency, worked my way up. I started like that little ant, just on a journey. I actually did prescription drug investigations for the Department of LLR. It was my only way into government. That's where I wanted to go. At the time, there was a hiring freeze. So I found the first job that they let me in the door, got in there, learned about it, loved it, as curious and weird as I am. I became passionate about it, but still knew I wanted to do something more. So my curious self I go to the Department of Government Affairs and say, hey, I want to be here. Tell me about what you do. I'm like, yeah, no jobs for you, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing. But we'll be happy to explain what we do. Like most people in government, they like to talk about themselves, which is kind of why I'm here. So of course, they told me about all the good things that they do and all the different things and the hurdles and the struggles, and I found it absolutely fascinating. It's exactly what I thought it was, exactly what I read in the books. And they said, but it's nothing like you read in the books. And I was like, okay, let's figure this thing out. And so as I worked my way up in that state agency, eventually, just grinding, somebody in the government affairs department left. And that hard work that I like to think that people recognized in that persistent discussion and talking and curiosity and engaging led me to having a position at that agency in government affairs. I had the opportunity to apply for that job, got it, and I became the director of government affairs and communications. So that's not the proper title. It was like coordinator of government affairs and communications. And so in that role, I got to interact with elected officials. I got to interact with other state agencies. I get to interact with people. We were a very forward-facing agency, all of which I learned tons and tons from. And I was like, all right, there's something more here. I want to know more. I want to see where life takes me. We should be curious, right? No, we shouldn't. That's what they would tell me. Like, no, you need to do this, and this is what we need to get done. And that's it. Let's move on to the next thing. My problem is I can't move on to the next thing. I want to know more about what I'm doing. I want to know more about what's transpiring. And so that ultimately led to me becoming the director of budget and legislative affairs in the governor's office. You're like, this dude went from investigating some prescription drugs to governor's office. I couldn't tell you that there was a clear path of how I did that. I just know that I was curious enough. I was becoming a little bit more vocal and finding my way. And then I was also passionate about people, passionate about understanding life itself, but also passionate about what makes change. Like, how do we do this? And so quick story there, the governor was running for his first term, and I'm working at a state agency, getting pulled into the governor's office, doing both jobs at the same time for 4 months. And people were like, wow, man, how are you doing both of these jobs at the same time? I was like, I don't know, it's crazy. I don't think I'm doing either one of them very well, but I'm trying. And so after that, the governor said to me 4 months later, he was like, all right, I'm running for my first full term. I want you to come on my staff full time. And I was like, all right, well, hey man, what happens if you don't win? And he's like, well, I'm out of a job and so are you. And I was like, oh shit. What am I doing here? Like, do I tell this guy no? Or so, at that moment, I was like, oh, when would you have this opportunity? I'm curious. I want to know where this takes me. So I was like, all right, yeah, whatever, let's do it. I go home and tell my wife, we have 2 kids at the time, and she's like, dude, go back and say no, man. What are you doing? And I was like, I can't do it. I want to know where this path takes me. I want to know what this world is, and behind the curtain, so to speak. I want to see how we can do something different, how we can be better, and how we can impact other people. And throughout my time there, I will tell you, it has been amazing. For me being the weird kid that I am, that's curious and kind of odd, and getting to understand people and reflect with them and talk to them and try to help them in any way that I can, or just be that little voice for them when they feel like there's not a voice, and bring that information back to somebody who can affect change, right? Again, at the time, the governor, sure, and tell them the stories that I hear, tell them the things that I see, tell them the people that I meet, tell them about them. And having that opportunity was one of the best things that I could have ever asked for. And then, leading me to where I am now at Scout Motors. Again, it is a company that does not have a vehicle yet. This company that's a startup, and the governor still had a lot more time left in his term, and I'm leaving. And somebody's like, dude, what are you doing? Where are you going? You don't know if this thing's gonna work. It's electric vehicles. People hate them. People love them. People think they're the future. People think they're gonna not exist in a year and a half, right? But the company was very very well put together. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with their passion to bring people together and to produce a product that has not been in America before. There was an old version back in the day, but this new electric version, not there. So what do you get to do? You get to talk to people all day. You get to try to influence change. You get to impact lives in a community where you're building a major factory and transform a region. And that is what I ultimately have always really wanted to do. And that is why I left the governor's office and I'm here at Scout Motors today. But as I tell you this story, somebody said, I was like, why do you want me to come speak today? Why am I talking? Why are the words coming out of my mouth? He said, well, you're a leader. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just some guy who does weird things and makes rash decisions because of his curiosity, right? And I look back and I started looking up things and I think of that ant. Well, maybe I'm the ant, right? Maybe I'm the ant that goes out and does these things and tries this and somebody sees it and it's like, oh, that's awesome. What you're doing is great. And when they said that to me, I was like, well, I don't feel like I'm a leader. I don't feel like I have leadership qualities, but that's awesome. I'm glad that you feel that way. I'm glad that I've done something that's helped you or you think of me that way. But what I ultimately want to do in life is I want other people to be these leaders. I want us to all influence and change folks. So I beg of you and I ask you to think about this story, this weird story that all got thrown together in 15 minutes up here. And think about the story, but think about the ant. Like that ant just went on a journey. Don't be scared of the journey. Take the journey. Don't be scared to share your voice. Don't be scared to talk about where you've been and what you've done. And finally, when you take that journey, take that risk, you're courageous. Win, lose, or draw, you've done something. But do something is what I want to leave you with. Just do something. And with that, I promise you, you're the leaders. You're the leaders. Whether you feel like you are or not, that chance that you took, you're the leader. And people should be like you. So I just want to tell you that story. I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you thank you for listening to some random guy talk about an ant. So that's what I have for you today. So thank you, and take that ant story with you as you journey through life. Thanks.